Hello, I'm Susan Hopgood, President of Education International. Welcome to the beginning of a remarkable virtual journey. Over the next 24 hours, literally tens of thousands of people will be joining you and me for a unique broadcast, a first of its kind look into the lives and work of hundreds of educators from around the world. We will be inside classrooms and in the halls of government, talking to Nobel Prize winners and country presidents. But all the while, we will keep a sharp focus on the educators who are marking this World Teachers' Day amidst a pandemic the way they always do, reaching their students as best they can. Let's be clear, we can't and we won't call this World Teachers' Day an unqualified celebration. From the very beginning, COVID-19 has devastated education, with school closures in 165 countries affecting 1.5 billion students and their families, and more than 63 million teachers and other educators. In the early days, EI surveyed a sampling of our 385 member organisations in 178 countries. 71% of the organisations reported the teaching was being moved to online platforms, even as teachers stayed on the job day after day for their students. The same surveys showed teachers feel they haven't been given the training, the tools, or the time to transition their practices online. Along the way, along these next 24 hours, we will be exploring these disconnects, asking and addressing the critical questions. What are we learning? How are we adapting? How are we shaping the present? And what do we want the future to look like? At least some of the answers are clear, and throughout this day, we will hear and see the evidence. We know COVID-19 affects the entire world, but its impact on world communities is not level. The virus has hit marginalised communities with a fury, not only in terms of disproportionate infection, but also by worsening conditions of poverty. In my own region, the World Bank reported last month that as many as 38 million more people in East Asian and Pacific countries could fall below the poverty line this year, including 33 million who would have escaped poverty if the COVID shock didn't happen. We know our teachers and our schools are vital to our communities and to our nations and the world. Despite the brilliant adaptations by the world's educators over the past 6 to 7 months, there are no screens or broadcasts or books delivered by bus that can replace teachers and students in schools. This realisation has brought our communities together in a new common purpose to value professional educators and well-resourced schools, and resilient and responsive school systems. And finally, we know that active and genuine social dialogue involving teachers, families, students, unions, and governments is critical, not only to public health, but to every element of the public sector, including education. Where you see less severe outbreaks of the pandemic and a more even return to school and work, you can be certain that there was consistent and reliable dialogue, transparency, and agreement across the society, as opposed to the harsh outcomes in countries with more authoritarian and anti-science leadership. And moving forward with our very exciting day, I want to introduce our host for the day, David Edwards, the General Secretary of Education International. Welcome, David.
Hello, Madam President, and thank you to our viewers around the world. Yes, you heard that correctly. We will be on the air for 24 hours, starting in the Asia-Pacific region where you are, Susan, moving across the time zones to Africa, the Arab region, Europe, Latin America, and ending in the region of North America and the Caribbean. And along the way, we have enlisted moderators who will be your guides as we move across the globe. In each of the regions, the broadcast will feature content specific to that region, but also we think you'll find some insights, a clear sense of our global profession, and some news that you can use. To see the program, click over to 5oct.org. The broadcast is available on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and we will be reading and showing your comments and questions throughout the day using the hashtag 5octLive. Not planning to be awake for 24 hours? Oh, come on. It'll be fun. But for those in this 99.9% category, no problem. The entire broadcast in a variety of segments will be available on YouTube in the days and weeks after today. But do us a favor, will you? If you're on a conversation thread or a listserv or Slack or any other platform where you're in touch with colleagues or friends who care about the work and hope and policy and anything else regarding this teaching profession that we so love, please send them a quick note. Let them know a little about what we're doing here and send them a link. We do love connecting with colleagues, and all will be able to interact with us on social media. But without further ado, let's get started. Education International, on behalf of the world's teachers, is fortunate to have friends and allies who play a prominent role in world affairs. Part of that relationship, of course, is based on the power of numbers. The fact that EI's 385 member organizations in 178 countries have 32.5 million members. But part of that also is that these members and their organizations have empowered EI as the global voice of organized educators and a force for educator activism worldwide. More than a half century ago, UNESCO and the ILO produced the landmark recommendations on the status of teachers. With ILO, an organization forged from the ashes of World War II, we participate actively through the workers group defending rights and helping to negotiate the future of work in education. In 2015, EI mobilized organizations on every continent over a 2-year period to build support for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, successfully achieving a standalone education goal, Goal 4 of the Sustainable Development Goals. And since that time, EI has been an active member of the United Nations coordination mechanisms for the goals, including the United Nations major groups, UNESCO's SDG Education 2030 Steering Committee, a board member of the Global Partnership for Education, and chair of the OECD Trade Union Advisory Committee Education Working Group. We've also served in an advisory capacity to the G20, and with the coming of the pandemic, quite frankly, we are working directly with the World Health Organization. You will see many of those organizations in the next several minutes in video messages from their leaders, all of whom support the work we are doing on behalf of teachers, educators, and students everywhere.